Hello and welcome to episode 5. We're running through the episodes here. My name's Stephen Dickens. You're joining us for AR Chat. I've got our co-hosts Crystal Golightly and Nathan Herman with us, and Erin Zehr. Hey Erin, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with y'all today.
Yeah, as soon as you reached out, I was looking forward to this conversation. So Erin, let's people know our co-hosts by now, but so we'll dive straight to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are and where you fit in this AR community.
Well, I think to start with your end there, where I fit in with the community, I think everyone fits in with the community. It's a lovely spot
This
for,
is a community podcast. That's what we're trying
yeah,
to do, right?
that's right. And just a lovely community for curiosity and exploration and learning. So appreciate what y'all are doing here with these conversations that you're hosting and the conversation that you're kind of driving through the community. But in terms of my background, I most recently was at Dell for about 13 years and led the industry analyst relations team the last 5 years of that. I've been a technology communicator for nearly 25 years now. Um, so, a variety of small companies coming out of stealth to companies acquiring other kind of mid-sized organizations, launching products, pivoting portfolios. And again, kind of the second half of my career, navigating big company of Dell. Lots of change in analyst relations in those most recent 5 years. And so that was exciting to be part of, contribute to. Lots of intellectual curiosity that was piqued for me in that exploration. And since then, I've been consulting, figuring out if I want to go back full time to do something somewhere or not. But I've been having fun digging in on some projects and doing all sorts of family and personal life things too that have maybe been on the back burner too long. So
Erin,
that's me today.
I'm gonna interject and say what I heard was basically Superwoman, right? That was a TLDR. uh,
I'm
yeah,
not sure, but I appreciate that.
I'm giving you the crown, Superwoman, or cape
Thank you.
rather, right? It's rather a cape. Um, I'm
Or
actually gonna
cuts.
exactly whatever it is you want, girl. Bing, I got it
Yeah.
for you. Um, that was a really great. I didn't realize that you were at Dell for so long and
Yes.
had, you see that sometimes where people have this long comms and even marketing background with all kinds of things, and then you landed in AR and was like, oh, right. And I
Yeah.
feel like you see that a lot, right? That's why we're all here. So with that, I'm going to tell you I've got one burning question I ask everybody, and that
Okay.
is, how do you think this whole AR world started? Or any ideas there?
I, you know, who knows? And also, I know that you asked that question. I asked ChatGPT what it thought.
I love
Oh,
Can I
this.
tell
okay.
you? Can I tell
Yeah.
you? Okay.
We've
Um, so first of all, well, it gave me a journey of an answer. And I think there's a lot to unpack in how it chose to answer me and so it identified Peggy O'Neill, which, you
okay.
know, props to Peggy, like
Yeah.
she's incredible, incredible. It had, I think
Informatica, Peggy.
yes, Informatica
Okay.
Peggy.
Yeah, yeah.
Peggy's been
Um,
around for a while, a long
he
time.
has, and maybe ChatGPT thought she had been around longer than she had. So,
We're like,
uh, which which I am positive Peggy has had an enormous impact on analyst relations, likely has had her fingerprints in what analyst relations is today, the purpose of the
We need to
function, the
get her on the
focus.
show,
You
obviously,
totally
Erin.
do. She's amazing. And also getting information through AI. I think that's maybe a conversation to keep poking at here, and that relationship with the depth and expertise and knowledge, informed perspective that comes from industry analysts, and how that only becomes more important as tools like ChatGPT continue to do their Gen AI thing. Really important, I think, for the future of analyst relations, to consider and be able to talk amongst ourselves as a community and talk with our leaders within our own respective organizations about how to understand that balance, and the ever increasing strategic nature of those analyst relationships, and informing with accuracy and, depth of access, the perspective that analysts have. Yeah.
Carter, our last guest, just posted something on LinkedIn. I don't know whether you guys saw it this week, talking about the exact topic of using AI in analyst relations, and there's some best practices in there. Great article. Highly recommend anybody goes and checks that out. I think we're at the very early days of that, Erin.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really interesting. I mean, Nathan, we were talking about it just sort of briefly off air. What's your perspective there? You're an AR pro, you're running a really fascinating part of Ericsson. You know, there's a huge scope for your role, so tools to make that job easier. What's your day today? Have you made the pivot? Are you thinking about it? What's the corporate guidance? How are you thinking about it?
I mean, the corporate guidance, I think, is the corporate guidance everyone's receiving, which is figure out how to use AI to meaningfully impact your job. I mean, on a personal level, I made it one of my growth goals this year. It's to find, and baby steps, but my goal is to find 3 repeatable use cases for generative AI that can affect my day to day.
That's a great practical step.
Have I found
And
them yet? No, I don't think so.
I love that you find 3 practical,
Yeah.
repeatable. I mean,
Yeah.
that is beyond, I think, how most people approach it. So, like,
It's just
bravo.
there's so much AI washing. There's so much hype. We know this. Like there are so many use cases you see on LinkedIn or like on the Vergecast. Crazy, ridiculous ways people are using Gen AI, and it's like none of that moves the needle. I think we talked about this maybe last episode or offline, but like I am a firm believer that AI is not meant to replace humans. It's made to elevate them.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I find 3, again, practical, repeatable things that can free me up to do different work? And then I'm also trying to be like very ethical about all this. And how do I make sure that those are within the confines of like data privacy and security? Like, we see talks all the time about could you use AI to summarize analyst research? And we've seen like firms like Forrester have actually built in an AI tool to where you can do that within their research platform, which I love. And I think HFS has done something similar. I think Futurum has done something similar.
Yep.
But like that's always a hang up I have for me. Like summarization and key takeaways would be great, but I also don't want to start violating a bunch of T's and C's that could then, put my contract in jeopardy. So maybe I'm a goody two shoes in this, but I'm still looking for those 3 repeatable use cases. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if anyone has suggestions, please throw them out my way. Because that is the goal for 2025. It's just, can I find 3 things that make my life easier?
Yeah.
Nathan, I think that's a really great thing that we should drop in the comments once we post this, and sort of get people, do some crowdsourcing.
I think it's a question we ask every guest.
Yeah, that's a new roster question. And let's turn that back to you, Erin.
Yeah.
You're saying that, you're doing some consulting. Like, do you have any tips for us? And I know you are running a very big team, so inspire us. That's a good
No pressure. No pressure, Erin. Just turn it on. We're waiting to be entertained.
All the answers. Here you go. Get ready.
Do you have the 5 magical things that we could all do today to make our lives easier using AI?
I think that no, and some things I'm thinking about are, Nathan, I really appreciate what you're saying about the ethics around summarizing published research and what if that exists in front of and behind paywalls. I think there's ways to potentially build out or use AI to capture what are analysts saying publicly, where are they saying those things, to continue to keep a pulse on the impact piece that is sort of publicly discernible. We know that analyst platforms continue to grow and build in interesting new directions that aren't just behind an expensive paywall. But I think that's an ongoing conversation that everyone is working really hard to understand, to kind of guide their own company investments into audience for that analyst, where their perspective is showing up, either in their own kind of byline pen research, but also in what traditional or emerging, evolving other media properties. So
I mean, that brings me back to a point, and we sort of bounced around, and you've kind of mentioned it again, the evolution of analyst relations. Maybe we can frame the next. We've got sort of 5-10 minutes left. I'd love to get your perspective. I know you did a really great podcast with Dave Valenti on this topic, and that's probably a good deep dive for people to go, because I think you kind of stayed on one thread from what I saw of it, of how the market's changing. So maybe we can get you to AI summarize your 45-minute chat with Dave Valenti in 10. But I'd love to get a perspective on that kind of. At your time at Dell, you probably saw it change, and Dell's probably gone through doing all of the things. Where do you, and I've got an opinion, and that's the thesis for me setting up the firm, that the world is changing and I can lean into that change, but it's not about me. I'm really keen to get your perspective of how you're seeing that change, what's happening, how you see things evolving.
The type of impact I was just describing, and is there a way to use AI to see where analyst perspectives are showing up publicly? That's one type, and the impact to a business and to its customers is going to be different if you look 5 degrees to the right, in impact of like that perspective on a different business and their customers. So there's a lot that is it depends with the company and where you are and who your leaders are and where your portfolio is competitively and what your plans are in roadmaps and advantages or not with supply chain and go to market, et cetera. So there's so much it depends, which makes this AR community so delightful, and being able to come together and talk about what is and what isn't, and what are we learning, and then we apply in our own unique ways. But I think importantly, there's also the impact of insight and how that insight is used within an organization to facilitate decision making. That I think there's another opportunity for AI. It's not to necessarily summarize research, but it could be to be a view to summarize what did we hear from our conversations. There's so much danger in overuse, I think, of AI that takes away the good nuggets from like the little like tiny light bulbs that add up to be a big one. And so being cautious to continue to balance use of AI to help speed up that insight summary and sharing of insights internally is different from summarizing what's written down.
It's fascinating you say that. As I go in and do advisory calls with my clients, the one thing I continually have in my mind is I'm going to say one sentence during this call that's going to land. And that's going to, and I'm thinking back to an advisory call I did with a client, sort of, and I stopped their strategy for the year, got them to do a completely different launch strategy, and accelerated a sort of announcement schedule because I said the sentence, "What, guys, why are you waiting?"
Mm.
And that was
Mhm.
the one sentence, and they replayed it back to me. I'm like, "Hey guys, you've decided to change your entire strategy." It's like, yeah, you asked us one question and we didn't have a good answer for it.
Yeah.
And that would have got lost in an AI summary of that call.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was the one sentence that got them to bring a launch schedule from October to May.
Yeah.
This is where I have trust issues because I've
Mhm.
tried to use Gen AI to ingest my insights. So, for example, when I joined Cradlepoint back in 2023, I went on a fact-finding mission. I went and did a bunch of inquiries on my own just to get a feel for the company. And then what I did is I took, that like 10 inquiries and I tried to synthesize all the data and I ended up doing it manually by hand because I trust myself. But I tried to use Gen AI, and I just felt like it wasn't pulling out the things I would pull out. Which
Yeah.
then is it an AI issue or a skill issue? Like maybe I'm just not good enough at prompt engineering because that is
Mhm.
an entirely own field. But there is so much nuance in conversations that is lost that I really don't trust AI to pull out. So I don't know.
The
Again,
one
if anyone,
sentence that makes the impact
Yes.
sometimes. It's not the hour-long advisory call and you talk. It's the one sentence that you ask a product leader or an executive, and they go, and it's the one that they're up at 2 o'clock in the morning, sort of thinking about 3 days later of like, I haven't got an answer to what Steve said.
But
Yeah.
don't you
And then
think?
you don't get all the other meetings in between that then come from that thing.
Yeah.
And then you're on an advisory call 3 weeks later and it's like, yeah, we've decided to work on we need your help for the next phase. And you're
Mhm.
like, how did that come from there to here?
I would do playing the and game, right? That and I would say that having this tool that takes the first crack at something
Mm-hmm.
valid can bring things up that maybe you didn't think about twice, but also gives you that motivation to say, that didn't really feel like the tone of the meeting. Let me take the 30 minutes to review my notes, to think about how I felt, to give a sense of the tone of the meeting. And so I oftentimes feel that using the tool, so this uh is it helps me sort of streamline my thought process, but then have that reflection point.
Mhm.
Right? And
Yeah.
building that part keeps me honest with my reflections.
Yeah. And any combination of these things that help you get to netting out insights and sharing them in a timely way with the right people in the spirit of so what and what's next? What do we do with it? What's the recommendation? Not just the perspective, but how do we take that into some sort of action?
Yeah.
Anything that helps you do any of that faster. I think there's a lot to play around with, to come together in community, to share what's working for us individually. Like the better we all get at what I just described, the better for what industry analysts do, their value and impact on their variety of audiences, who's paying attention to them. I think we're all in this together, and I think individually want our respective companies to get ahead or be accurate at least in that commentary. But we have a lot of figuring out to do together and learning from one another.
absolutely. And it might seem simple, but I actually just wrote down what you said because it really stuck with me. I think if anyone's listening to this podcast for professional development tips or just how to be better at the craft, I think all of us, if we can employ the so what and what's next
Yeah.
framework, that elevates analyst relations. It's one thing to send insights out, right?
Yeah.
It's another to say, okay, what do these insights mean? And here are my recommendations as a strategic partner for the business on what
Right.
we should consider next.
How
Yeah,
can we
just on
drive closing the loop back with
Yes.
analysts? Yeah.
a
Yeah.
phrase that I often use that I love in that same sort of context of a really simple thing that frame, how can I help?
Hmm.
And I've asked that of people who've reported to me in the past. I've asked it of leaders, and it's such a and I ask it of the clients I work with. how can I help?
Mhm.
And it puts you in a sort of servant leader position when you're leading a team, and it's a great dynamic when you're working with clients. But I loved what you said, Erin, as well. Some of that, sometimes it's the most simple things you say
Mhm.
that have the most impact. So what? What's next? How can I help? They're simple sentences, but they really unpack. We all have so many complicated conversations.
Yeah.
And maybe this is where I'm from in the UK. Maybe this is just the way I'm wired. I'm always trying to get to I'm having this as an advisory discussion with one of my clients at the moment. And I won't name names, obviously, but we're trying to work on some messaging for a launch later on in the year. I'm like, stop putting words on your charts. Let's make these simpler. That was literally my discussion with him. Like, I created you an image. Don't put words on it. Just let the image. We're trying to net out the noise of all of this. Fortunately, I know this guy well enough that I can give him that
Yeah.
feedback. I'm like,
Isn't
so,
it
Real
funny
talk.
how
Yeah.
simpler is not easy?
Oh,
oh,
it's so hard. It's so hard. It really
that's
is.
90% of my advisory calls, making
Yeah.
stuff simpler.
Yeah.
So,
It really is.
with all of this, and in the spirit of watching the clock, Erin, the thing we like to kind of end each show on is what's next for analyst relations. So, I have a pet theory that I think everything you've said validates is that eventually this can be part of a larger corporate function that supercharges customer insights, competitive insights, public insights, analyst insights for business strategy. What do you think? Where are we going? What's the future 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? You pick.
I completely agree with the supercharged insights. I think this could be another place where AI has a role in helping to, once we figure out how to use AI, maybe to net out with accuracy, and with value, insights from one stakeholder group, analysts, industry analysts. How might that same type of tool help to net out similar insights, like you mentioned, from customers, from investors, from partners? What is the value of that stacked insight to a business, where
Mhm.
there are multiple data points from different sources saying the same thing or completely different things? Where is there outlier insider perspective that can help you understand something about retention, or understanding of something that you are or aren't doing? So just the power of aggregated or stacked insights, I think, is hopefully in our future. I think there's opportunity to get there, and it's hard work to go in that direction. It's not typical. It's not the historical, I think, purpose of any of those functions, but um, it's what I'm interested in trying to go tackle and figure out and contribite to.
I want to
So let's
inspire
talk.
you.
Let's talk.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
just say I heard the most inspiring thing in a call a week or two ago, that an AR team is using AI to find opportunities within their sales organization by looking for very specific things in sales notes. And that's all I know right now. And I just thought, like, oh man, what a great use case to help people either close the loop, like
Mhm.
um across the board internally, and maybe even with the analysts. And what a great application of AI, if you can make that happen. So
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
guys, we've got to bring this to a wrap. We could carry on talking for hours. Erin, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Really good to get your perspectives. You've been listening to episode 5 of AR Chat, where we talk about what's going on in the analyst relations community. Please click and subscribe and do all those things and turn the notifications on so that we can grow a community here. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much for listening.